Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Property AI Reports. This is your weekly update of all things property and AI, brought to you by me, Mal McCallion, and my good friend and co-host, Matt Goddard. Matt, how are you today?
I'm great, Mal. I'm ready for you this week. I cut the countdown and everything. How's your week been?
Lovely. It's been really good, really good. Although we are actually recording this slightly later than anticipated, because about like three hours later, which is my fault this time. Because so just before we get stuck into our property news and then our AI news, many of you know that we've been doing quite a lot of experimentation, as Matt has as well, but here in Model Prop. And one of the things that I've been doing is building out this kind of team of AIs. But there are 7 of them. They are basically raw AI natives, so we call them RAIN, the RAIN team, and there are 7 of them. And basically, they've all different jobs. So we've got IT director, we've got an ops director, we've got marketing, we've got sales, we've got various others, we've got an executive assistant. So what happened this morning was that I was getting the IT one to do something on the on our marketing hub. So marketing.myporter.ai, go and have a look. And basically, it just completely failed to do something really important. Actually, if you go there now, what we were doing was introducing videos that basically will co-brand on the fly. So this AIs have built this amazing piece of kit. But yes, it just got really stupid about logos. So there's the phrase, and me and Matt were chatting about it earlier. With great power comes great responsibility, which we were trying to work out the provenance of, weren't we, Matt?
Spidey, isn't it?
Was it just Spider-Man? Is there anybody
Must
else?
have been Uncle Ben. Spider-Man got everything from Uncle Ben.
That's right. Wise Uncle Ben. But yes, so
rice.
Indeed. Be careful out there. If you want to know anything, obviously we're always happy to talk about what we're doing, how we're building these things. We help others to build them too. But yes, there is some really interesting stuff that you kind of come across as you go along. Anyway, that is a long preamble that we may well cut out to property news this week, which features some very familiar cast members, doesn't it, Matt?
It does indeed. You love sticking a portal or 2 in the mix, don't you?
Well, when Rightmove comes out, as they have done this very morning, and says that, they're targeting another sort of 8 to 10% of revenue increase, the profit's going to go up by 3 to 5%. They are going to shovel 140 million quid into their shareholders' pocket, pure cash, which one of us calculated, it was me, is about 40,000 actual completions for estate agents on average. So how many completions you do, take a significant percentage of those and basically just torch them or put them into the pocket of Rightmove shareholders. But yes, they are very much this is business as usual, guys. We're all over this. Everything is fine. This is fine, which we'll also come back to later. And it's going to be, just another year, another kind of sailing merrily on. I had a quick look at their share price this morning. It's down about kind of 1%, 1.5% at the time of recording. Doesn't sound like they over-enthused anybody in particular, and still down obviously significantly over the last 7 to 8 months. But yeah, look, I think that the dawn of AI, just like when you go back to print, the first arrival of the internet, basically all the print guys were going, this seems fine. And in the end, it kind of wasn't. I think, obviously that there is a very firm focus that we have and others on, helping agents to get out from under the boot of that particular organization, particularly as it continues to hike prices and has basically told the market that that's what's going to carry on doing all of this year. The only slight kind of bit of difference is that mortgages, they're going to whack up by, I don't know, 20 to 30% or something like that. So they're really coming after, agents' additional revenue streams as well as the kind of core cost base. But yeah, Matt, anything else that kind of jumped out to you from there?
Not significantly, only that obviously if we'd recorded on time, then we would have missed that story completely. So at least we're up to date on that one. And I suppose alongside that, the other news article you had was about their Glow TV campaign that's due to start landing from tonight, actually, isn't it? It's going out primetime television during the Neighbourhood, Gogglebox and World Seniors Snooker Championship, which I know you'll be watching. But
you know me so well.
What did you make of their new advertising campaign?
Am I allowed to tell? Am I allowed to say this again? So listen, the key kind of takeout, the big sort of punch or emotional kind of moment was 63 properties in your budget, it said, was like the big payoff. It's like, portals have been doing that since 2001. It's like being able to find number of properties in your budget. It's like, is that it? Look, it strikes me very much as as one would expect, a very corporate advert. Very well done, very beautiful, of course. The corporate advert from a corporate committee sitting in a meeting room in Rightmove Towers.
Soho Square, isn't it?
Soho Square, yes, very much. Just kind of, yeah, getting high on their own supply and thinking that this is, this is the kind of this is what people want to hear. No real surprise, they're not going to break this particular machine if they don't have to. So, yeah, just a interesting to see them spending all that money in this particular way to try and lock in the consumers. But yeah, it's another year of just same old, same old. It's the same kind of advertising campaign, same kind of prices going up for agents, the same. So it's been 25 long years now. It's probably time that it changed. Anyway, let's move on to our second story in our property news. And this one relates to influx of different AI products and services coming into the market. There's been a WhatsApp assistant for estate agents, which has been launched by a company called Vaco, V-E-Y.
Not Vico, by Eurolink.
V-E-C-O, not V-E-C-O. There has been an AI assistant that's been launched by a company called, I think, estateagents.ai, and yes, various other AI tools targeting productivity and various other things and so on. So again, it just speaks to this kind of coming wave, I think, of organizations, companies seeing an opportunity, seeing something that they perceive to be a problem in the market and kind of going after it. Matt, obviously this is a sector that you look at and care about deeply. What's your take on this kind of this sort of small rush of individual products coming very specifically to solve very specific things?
For me, we had last week, the sort of main theme was the CRMs coming in with their agentic announcements, with sort of the Alto and the Streets. We had the Repeat announcement that they were going to do something later in the month or early next month, although I got a bit of a nudge on that actually Repeat had announced their agentic roadmap back in the summer of last year when they had Matt McGowan from Australia on stage at Kerfuffle conference. It wasn't last week that it was announced. It's been coming for a while, and
so
you need
ahead.
you need to have the infrastructure and everything else in place. But I think it links together nicely because you need the CRMs on board to be able to really connect these things, because otherwise the more standalone products. Was it Kerfuffle said that the average estate agency has 20 different bits of prop tech inside the business? And that's a lot of silos. Crazy. Doesn't surprise me that it's gone up. Lots of different silos of data, and obviously you want that data interacting and in one place, like one source of truth, to be able to get the most from it all. I think there are some of these use cases where when you are plugging them in and starting to enter your data, there's one here that's the VACO, anti-money laundering compliance services business. The underlying question is, where is your data going? And then just making sure you check in sort of what model are they going fed into? Are you going and helping that data go off into the wider world, making sure that you know what you sign up to when you're dealing with these, especially around compliance and GDPR and personal identifiable information. But I also think they're brilliant in terms of people use WhatsApp a lot now. And if you can have a conversation, get updates via it. I've used WhatsApp to speak to my a couple of my agentic. What you've got now? 7 of your Rain Men, was it? You said, or 9 of them?
Yes, 7.
I've got a couple that I discuss things via WhatsApp. I've got a couple that I have Slack channels with, just depending on the use case. So being able to gather that information and as an end consumer, live where you live, basically. You don't need to be swapping and downloading apps and doing things out of context that you normally work. I think it's brilliant a use case, and absolutely where AI will start to make a difference. I know with the estateagents.ai offering, you a little bit concerned by some of the wording around the press release.
Yeah, I do think so. So I think that the intention of the guy called Tom Lodge was right in terms of he was kind of trying to warn people that this technology is so good, it's so scary. But of course, in the PR, that was the word that most of the journalists picked up on. It was like, this is scary tech, guys, and almost like, don't use it. So I kind of think, but I do think that it's an interesting PR moment. And I'm sure one that, if you're going to have that PR, that press release again, then you probably leave that particular phrase out. But yeah, scary is probably the wrong word. It's so amazing, I think, would probably be a better word. And yeah, what they're looking to do there, which is, I think it's phone calls and stuff like that, is, eminently doable. There's a number of the of products and services out there at the moment. This particular one, I think, phones out your old leads, which I know Valpal Pro does as well. But yeah, it's I think what I always think is, if you're starting something, so you're launching a new business and nobody else is doing it, then there's only ever 2 reasons. One of 2 reasons. One is it's a really dumb idea. And the second one is you are way ahead of the curve. So now that everybody else is kind of charging in, it's kind of reassuring for everybody else who's kind of in AI. It's like, this is definitely, this is something when we started out a few years ago and it was quite sparse on the old terrain. So no, it's good to see. And I think, there's a lot of, there's a lot of opportunity. And I think that a lot of people who are going to need help and guidance kind of understanding what all of this is, because it is like a train, it is coming so fast, and things like, your agentic AIs, mine, what you can do, and also relevant to the conversation at the start of the show, what you can mess up is quite significant. So yeah, it's very much a, it's so powerful, and something that, again, sounding like a stuck record as we always do, play with it, go find it, go use it, because it is so, there is nothing like actually experiencing it and kind of messing about with it yourself.
And I think just wrapping up on that segment as well, because we talked about the two who you call more almost sort of prop tech suppliers, like new entrants. Excuse me. But we also had the Reps launch early this week as well. So Tom Ainsworth, who's their global chief revenue officer, and Danny taking us through, and you and I, we have the good fortune of sharing a Leaders Inc. group with Mark Hinkins from Reps. So we've been really enthused by enthused by Mark's enthusiasm, haven't we, about what they're bringing to the market?
Yeah,
and
100%.
Certainly getting a chance to have a look at it on Tuesday, it meant that you could see that they're up to speed with the sort of things that Street and Alto were announcing. And it's obviously the big pivotal moment is how much of this is future stuff versus how much is now in agents' hands, right?
Yeah, exactly that. And yeah, to kind of reflect back on what we were talking about last week, and agents I've spoken to over the last week, I'm sure you have as well. They're really starting to feel that this is this is going to be something that they need to use and they need to understand. So yeah, Rex coming into the mix alongside the others, and obviously Reapit as well. There's a lot of choice out there right now, and because I think everybody is coming in at the same time, probably what's going to happen is everyone's just going to kind of stick where they are for now and see how it all plays out, which is probably the intention for most of them, right? It's like, don't give anybody else a kind of edge. But yes, I think that all of them are showing some really concrete signs of really understanding what it all is, and helping their customers to be able to deploy it. So I think it's great. All right. Next up, our property news. Word of 1 in 4 would-be sellers are shelving their move plans amid rising uncertainty. So this is Get Agent data, Colby and Co. of a survey of over 1,000 UK homeowners said 24% of those who planned to sell at the start of 26 have now abandoned those plans. All right, now that is not insignificant. And that obviously has a big impact on everybody operating in the UK residential property sector, whether they are actually estate agents or whether they are providers, suppliers too. Certainly, obviously, having a big impact on the people that probably had high hopes of a really nice, strong year. Matt, any thoughts?
Just really insightful, really, isn't it? And it's good to see that sort of end user commentary rather than just via the estate agents. It can be a bit boom and bust, especially if you've had deals fall through. You see everything is negative, right? Whereas getting that direct from the end users quite insightful.
Yeah, exactly. It's when you look at what's happened, which is basically from 28th of February up until the 28th of February, everything seems to be looking all right, pretty positive, right? It was like, oh, this could be a really good year. And then out of the blue, yes, the attack on Iran happened, and that's basically changed pretty much everything. So I think there's a lot of people out there kind of hoping that something's going to change, because Trump has got the midterms and things like that, so he's got to try and sort this out. So hopefully by, if not before the summer, because it's already the 8th of May and therefore we're kind of nearly at summer already, then certainly in September, hopefully everything will be resolved, and all of the pent up 24% of people who decided to wait will come back to the market in their droves, and we will end up with a really good end to the year. But yes, fingers crossed on that. But as you say, really good to get some solid data that's going to help people in their conversations with buyers and sellers and tenants and landlords out there. All right, that is our property news for this week. Let us talk about AI and tech news. Right, we've got quite a lot of OpenAI stuff to chat about. Particularly, they've released ChatGPT 5.5 Instant, which is the auto mode or the default mode when you go onto ChatGPT. If you don't change it to thinking or anything else, if you just leave on ChatGPT auto, then it will start to use 5.5 Instant, which is really good. And I know I said last week it's really good when ChatGPT 5.5 came out, and it's difficult to get more excited than that, but because it's really good. I don't know, Matt, have you got any other adjectives that are slightly more exciting?
I guess the only details for those that aren't geeks like us is that it's going up from 5.3 to 5.5, and whilst that's a couple of point releases, the actual benchmark scores have gone from 65.4, being sort of a math test that's done on these models to understand how powerful and intelligent they are. It's gone from 65.4 to 81.2. So, a decent step change between those 0.3 and 0.5 models. It is good. And you will notice the
It's really good.
difference. It's just, is it tangible? Is basically what you're getting at, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And just to be clear, that was the math test you talked about. And on the maths test, is there a different benchmark?
Yeah,
Or is it?
exactly. Good. So data, and beta, right?
Yes. Again, old geezers like me. I'm going to speak for myself. We were having a chat earlier about me and Matt about the word beta versus beta, and basically my kids always say beta these days. And it's don't know how we're going to change that. But anyway, carrying on. That's really
Maybe you should shame them on a podcast that they don't listen to.
That's a really good idea. I'm going to do that. Right. Well, we've also got in the OpenAI a bucket of news. We've got so they spent a long time in the last 3-4 weeks basically saying that Claude. Those that listen will remember Claude Mythos was released. It's a big, scary model that basically can crack through any codes into the banking system, all that sort of stuff. So it's kept carefully under wraps. And OpenAI basically been a competitor to Claude, have basically been sitting there going, they're just Anthropic, makers of Claude, are just doing this to scare everybody. And now they themselves are actually sitting there restricting people's access to their cyber version of 5.5, aren't they? So yeah, it's kind of almost predictably the same kind of deal where they wanted to get a piece of that sort of mythical fear that was driving people to really want to have Mythos, that fear of missing out. Couple more things on OpenAI. They've changed the Microsoft deal again. So now OpenAI can be seen on other partners such as Amazon.
They can indeed. It was that 50 billion deal with Amazon was the one that was sort of putting this under scrutiny, wasn't it? And I think a big part of that rewritten deal yet again was that the OpenAI Microsoft legacy deal that's been in place was that would finally come to a resolution and end as and when AGI was reached, artificial general intelligence, for those not down on the acronyms. And it's a very woolly term and like no actual benchmarks, for want of a better phrase, as to how that would be achieved. So it sounds like that has been revised once again as part of this deal. It's certainly been a busy week for OpenAI. It always feels like a school ground spat between them and Anthropic, doesn't it? Even before they refused to hold hands at the convention the other month. But if the other part of it is they're looking at making a phone now, aren't they?
Absolutely, which, and again, because we're sad geeks, right? We keep talking about devices and think, I wonder what, Johnny Ive and Sam Altman are kind of getting together. And is it an in-ear thing? Is it a pen? Is it like, a little card that kind of sits in your wallet? And now they're talking about a phone. And, part of me thinks they haven't got a clue. They're just throwing stuff out and just trying to make some noise, because so far there has been zip of any kind of prototypes or even noise that you usually hear.
We're not seeing the puck floating around.
Well, but yeah, is it true? Is it real? It's just, it all seems like a bit of a...
I'm just going to stick with my electronic dictaphone for those listening to us. I'm waving my dictaphone around. Dictaphone.
And that is Cloud, is it?
Claude,
Meta, Marta, Potato, Beta, Barter, whatever.
Crack on.
Yes. So I think that, again, it just feels like a device will come. It will probably sometime in 2027, and it will probably be, the first one will probably be something that everybody kind of goes, and then somebody will absolutely crack it. And it might be OpenAI, it might be one of the others, but yeah, it's again just interesting, because it's almost back to the future, isn't it? It's like, so this massive, big technological business from the future is now making a phone, like it's 2006, basically. All right, so that's OpenAI. We are segueing a little bit away from them, but not too far, because they are in court. And again, those listening last week will have known my excitement at the gossipy gossip that's coming out of this courtroom. Elon Musk versus the other founders of OpenAI, Sam Altman, Greg Brockman. Elon himself testified in the last week that XAI, which is his large language model, his frontier AI business, owned now by SpaceX, it trained its version of ChatGPT called Grok on the OpenAI models. Now, this was thought historically to only be something that the Chinese models did, was basically try and distill, as they call it, all of this particular model down into sort of smaller knowledge base, not have to go through all of the training that the bigger models had to do, just kind of use them to shortcut it. But it turns out that actually XAI has been doing exactly the same to OpenAI, and that's been kind of frowned upon, I think, hasn't it? As a kind of not a thing to do in polite society.
Not at all. And it's certainly been interesting. I know you love the gossipy stuff.
Yeah,
There's the Greg Brockman was on
Mm.
the stand and being
Yeah.
quizzed, and it was his journals. I think we touched on last week. We're going to be whether they're read out in court, whether we're going to put forward as evidence. And actually, it came out that about how Elon actually came to leave OpenAI, because people forget that he was sort of there at the very start, wasn't he?
To be honest. Yeah.
But then it's not just all gossip that Elon's involved in this week. He's actually brokering a deal with Anthropic, who surged ahead recent weeks and become probably the leading foundational model. We know from our conversations that they've been really struggling with resources and sort of limiting what they've got done. And so they've done a massive deal with SpaceX, haven't they? That they've announced
Yeah.
at their, what's it called? Code with Claude event that's been running over in America this week.
Yeah. So I always get a little bit sus about the fact that, when Elon's kind of down, or there's some negative stuff, as there has been about this court case, suddenly there's a big announcement and, oh, look over here, look over the shiny thing over here, don't look over there. And yes, but it's a big deal, right? Anthropic, as you say, they've been struggling with compute. It's become so popular over the last 6 months or so, particularly. And, I find myself, so I have like the max version of Claude, which is £75 a month or something like that, and the amount of tokens I get, so the amount of actual usage I get, has fallen off a cliff over the last 6 weeks or so. It's literally just like falling through my fingers. It's like, what? I used to be able to do so much more than this for my £75. But yeah, they are obviously constrained, but it's a super model, obviously, and yes, they're now kind of partnering up. And I think, people keep looking up and looking out into space and thinking there must be a way of putting, getting compute from up there, because we're running out of space down on Earth. There are a lot of complaints and court cases, and people not wanting data centers in their in their vicinity, in their villages. So yeah, it's looking like moving out into the great blue yonder is going to be the right thing for a lot of these businesses to do. So yeah, again, I think it's good, it's right, it's the thing that they should be doing. I just am a little bit sus about the timing, frankly.
Well, they need to be doing it, don't they? And they've reportedly also agreed a $200 billion deal with Google for some of those resources. The bits that are interesting that came out of this Code with Claude event: managed agents are going to start dreaming. And whilst that sounds a bit scary and maybe 1990s film, is actually where at the end of the day, or at a certain point during the course of the day, evening, the agents will actually go back over their memories and consolidate them, very much like we do during REM sleep. If I'm on my biology lessons, is it biology, neurology? So they're actually consolidating it. So we're learning across all your 7 Rain Men and understanding what they've learned during the day, consolidating that and updating their various memory files, so that you're not having to sort of constantly bounce and remember that actually you taught this one guy thing something that you haven't spoken to the others about.
Yeah.
So that dreaming does sound a bit, I guess, not scary, a bit ethereal. But the other one that I was quite interested in is Orbit, which is coming along as a proactive assistant within Claude, and very much feels to me a bit like OpenAI tried with Pulse maybe a year ago, with a sort of a daily update and briefing type approach, rather than you having to ask for something. And excuse me, and in a way, I guess it's a bit like you could be doing with scheduled tasks already, but this will be able to draw on your emails and calendars and give you an update of everything you've got to come ahead in the day.
Yeah, and yeah, like you said, I think that it's the proactive bit of that's really quite interesting. It's not just going to sit there and wait for you to tell it what to do. It's going to actually kind of, offer you things like, this email has come in, would you like to respond in this way, which basically reflects your particular style and so on and so forth, and reflects what you've replied or how you've replied to that person in the past. So if they're really good friends of yours, then they'll be cheerful. If it's something a bit more formal, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think it's a kind of obvious next step, but it's going to be a really important one, because we're going to start seeing these things take action based on understanding of what we might need, and that's just going to kind of move much closer towards the future, which is where basically these things are just doing stuff autonomously without even our intervention in the main. All right, wanted to cover a couple of Apple stories that have kind of bounced around over the last week. It's been a little while since we've done something about Apple, certainly something positive about Apple, apart from the fact that they've got a new CEO. So they've been surprised by the AI-driven demand for Macs. So again, people listening who have been around for a little while will remember when OpenClaw came out, which is the beginning of the year. So OpenClaw is basically a harness for loads of AI agents. It's actually what my brain team is based on, and basically all work together. You can put them into little chat groups together, and they chat with each other. Which the first time you watch it is quite scary, quite weird, but actually you get so used to it very, very quickly. And they've all got different personalities as well. And to your point about dreaming, with all of these, you give them what's called souls, SOULs, which again kind of sounds a bit scary. Anyway, Apple basically, when people started using this OpenClaw, they realized that actually the best thing to put it on was an Apple Mac Mini sitting somewhere aside from everywhere else, so it couldn't blow anything up. So Apple saw this massive surge in demand for Macs. Now, again, we've taken the mick out of Apple quite a lot for its failed AI strategy, but I mean, brilliant. Actually, the hardware thing has worked out really, really well for them.
And it's not just because of the open clause, but actually, if you look at things like Codex and Claude Code and Claude Co-work, and even we're recording on Riverside, and you're still on a Mac.
So far,
on the Mac, you've got the Mac app for it, whereas Windows doesn't have a Riverside app. So actually, a lot of these agentic platforms and harnesses that are coming along are very much blazing a trail with their Mac apps and not even in consideration onto Windows. And if they do, we feel like a poor cousin when we eventually get them. So it's very much helped Apple hardware across the board on those fronts.
I think it has. And again, the next story kind of plays into that as well, which is almost because Apple hasn't nailed its colors to the mast or baked in or developed its own AI large language model. It's now able to use, and the word is that the iOS 27, which is coming out very soon, will be what they call a choose your own adventure of AI. So you can actually select Claude, or you can select ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini, and that will be what you use, and it will reflect, conversations that you've had on your Mac or your Windows machine. And I think, again, that they're almost benefiting by. It's interesting, isn't it? They're almost benefiting just by not doing anything, right? They're actually was that the strategy all along? Was they playing 5D chess? And actually, this is it. Now they're actually in the driving seat because they could decide. They're kingmakers of actually who gets onto the iPhone or who's able to kind of plug in and stuff like that. So yeah, it feels it feels quite smart of them, or just very lazy.
What do they say about luck, hard work, and opportunity?
That's right.
I'm not sure that's necessarily the case here, but yeah. Good luck to them.
Indeed. All right, just a couple more things in our. We're going to bundle them up into other news. We should have some kind of sad, funeral music, shouldn't we, for Ask Jeeves?
I do wonder how many people are going to remember what Ask Jeeves is.
I know. I was going to say, for those of a certain age who remember, as I do, their first Google search, because you're that old, Ask Jeeves was around before then, and it was the way that you found stuff out. It was a bit better than AOL and various others and Yahoo, because it has a little butler icon. And that was the only difference. And it was called ask.com, but it was Ask Jeeves. And it's dead. RIP. Good luck out there. So that went down this week. And yes, obviously very sad for nostalgia fans. I'm sure something will come back at some stage with it. Also, in other news, AI-generated actors and scripts are now ineligible for Oscar nomination. Okay, so the thing that struck me here was AI-generated scripts. It's at what point, how are you going to know? How are you going to stop? And is it 100% of AI-generated script? Is it 10% of AI-generated script? Where is that line? Or is it anything? So yeah, just obviously there is a very big union over there. I think it's called SAG-AFTRA, Screen Actors Guild, and something else. And they are very militant about not having AI involved in acting and things like that. But yes, seems a bit hard to police, doesn't it?
Well, Carrie Fisher didn't get any Oscars for a return posthumously for Star Wars, did she?
Posthumously?
Yeah, and we've got Val Kilmer in, what's it called? His new film is As Deep as the Grave, where he's purely AI generated, although I think it's his actual voice. So we're sort of stepping in advance of award season to make sure they're not true. And maybe, in the future, EA Masters will have something similar for estate agents.
Yes, I imagine they'll have, a non-AI generated estate agent of the year. Yeah, it is. I think it does kind of speak to, is there going to be an AI Oscars, separately, where actually there is awards for everything that's AI, not wanting to liken it too much to the enhanced games, which are kind of like the Olympics, but for people who are quite happy to take absolute tons for steroids. But yes, there's something for everybody. Everyone can win a prize, right? And so that's we'll see how that affects and particularly what's going to happen the first time somebody wins, like for a script, and then 3 weeks later they discover that actually half of it was made with AI and they have to hand it back, which is inevitable, I would suggest. Right, that is all we've got time for on AI and tech news. Let us quickly dip into our occasional series, which is Weird AI of the Week. Right, now, I put this in only because I have a very big love of this meme. So the meme in question is the anthropomorphic dog that sits smiling, surrounded by flames, and says, "This is fine." Okay, so I'm sure many, not most people, have seen the "This is fine" dog with his little cup. And there's been a big kickoff over in the States because a particular company, which is called Artisan. Now, Artisan have been big out in the States by advertising a massive billboards saying, "Don't employ humans," or "The last human you need to employ, and just use AI." And everyone's basically been really kind of like raging against them. So now they've gone one step further and they've nicked a meme. And that's just too much for absolutely everybody. And basically the person who drew the meme is very incensed by the use of their IP, their intellectual property, and they are now looking to sue Artisan for misuse of their copyright, which is not really surprising, is it, Matt? Because AI kind of uses a lot of stuff that allegedly hasn't been always spoken for.
It's a bit of a sad tale, isn't it? Because Green and his legal representation said basically it's taken the wind out of his sails, having to deal with the lawsuit instead of making comics. So if AI just backed down, we might have more memes that you talk about that I've never heard of.
True. Let us look forward to that day. All right, that's our Weird AI of the Week. And finally, our tool of the week for this week. It's ChatGPT 5.5 Instant. Matt, you've got a little bit more insight into this one. It's basically... It's very good. I think I might have said that. Really good. But it's smarter, clearer, more personalized is basically the kind of hook. But basically what we're saying, as we do with Tool of the Week every week, is people should go and try it, right?
Yes, exactly that. And cheaper as well if you're using it by the API. Well worth a look. It's in there now. Run some of those queries that you normally run. See how those responses come back. But also, as you rightly pointed out at the start, if you're still using the instant, make sure you're clicking on the button and trying thinking, because that really should be your go-to now going forward.
100%, yes. And you can try it on math and maths. Give it a go. All right, that is all we have time for this week. Thank you so much for listening in. We will be back again next week when we will be bringing even more property and AI news. Matt, this compels me to ask, whereabouts are you going to be next week when we try and do this badly?
Depends on what time you don't show up, Mal. But one of the things, I was running around Brixton earlier this week and I sent you a video. I saw one of the Waves driverless cars being tested. And I've also been sent pictures of the Waymos being tested in North London. So at some stage, maybe we need to do a podcast from the back of one of those that we threatened to do a year ago.
Yeah. Let's do that, definitely. But you are off to San Fran, aren't you? You are going to San Francisco
I am flying
tomorrow.
to America tomorrow morning, all being well.
Excellent.
Yep, it set off at 12:45 and land at 3:45. Didn't realise it's such a quick flight.
Say hi to Sam Altman and all the guys from me as well, as usual. So yeah, listen, we'll be back in next week. Hope everybody has a great weekend and week, and we will see you in 7 days.
Take care, everyone.